Hello everybody, thank you for taking the time to watch this introduction to InTouch Machine Edition. Today I'm going to share with you just what is InTouch Machine Edition and how it can help you be more efficient in your plant or your process or just however you decide to use it. Quick overview of what the product is, and before we get into a little bit more details, uh, InTouch Machine Edition is a very easy to use yet still very powerful and very affordable HMI software for PCs, industrial panels, embedded and mobile devices. And the way that you deploy this is really developing in what's called an integrated development environment, or IDE for short. And then you can deploy this on one or multiple operating systems, including any current Microsoft operating system, which could be Windows CE or Windows Mobile, embedded operating systems, Windows Desktop, so for example, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, as well as server editions of Windows. And now we also offer the ability to run on Linux and VxWorks as well. So the overall idea is to be able to run on any device with any network and get data from just about anywhere. And the idea is that built on open standards, to be able to communicate with things that maybe traditional HMIs would not be able to communicate with, and interact with things, OPC, ActiveX and .NET, as well as some of the newer technologies that are out there, JavaScript and HTML5, to be able to interact and keep things open. So recognizing that we can't build every feature that everybody needs in the product, so we keep it open and expandable, all while paying attention to security as well. Now, the idea of this platform independence, as I mentioned, we can really run on any hardware platform. So again, the idea of desktop and server, embedded operating systems such as Embedded Standard 7, Compact Edition, Windows Embedded Compact, or commonly known as Windows CE, or even Linux and VxWorks for the Internet of Things market space as well. And the mobility, keeping this open to being able to view and interact with your screens just about anywhere. These middle section here are commonly referred to as what we call thin clients, where they are kind of extensions of the main runtime. So this first one here on the left would be what we call web thin client, and I'll describe these a little bit more in detail, but this might be used in an office environment to view and interact with your screens remotely from maybe a production supervisor's office, again, to be able to see the machine or your process remotely. This middle one here is what we call secure viewer, and many people will often deploy this on a large machine or a long machine, again, getting the screens and the information from the main runtime, but acting or interacting as additional HMIs across the machine or up and down the line. Full screen, there's no browser involved here. And then the third kind over here is what we call SMA Thin Client. Now this is built on HTML5 technology, so you can really just open up your browser on your iPhone, your iPad, your Android phone or tablet, and view and interact with those screens. All of these have security built in, and you can be on different screens from the main runtime. You can have different languages open. You can have different users logged in as well. The really neat thing about this rightmost one, the one that's built on HTML5, and the fact that you can just open up a browser on these devices, is you don't have to install an app. You don't have to maintain the app. We don't have to maintain the app, and your customers don't have to maintain the app. Again, it's just opening it up on a browser. You can go full screen, go into kiosk mode, and make it look just like the real runtime as well. And then so much more than what a traditional HMI can do. In addition to communicating with PLCs, there's over 250 drivers built in, and we can communicate to things like robots, temperature controllers, motion control, RFID, barcode readers, databases. You can even configure and interact with networking devices using SNMP protocol, and interact and log to and even deploy on the cloud you can really interact with or set up the different architectures in so many different ways for interaction there. And I'll bring up MQTT a little bit later. That's a driver that we have built in that, along with OPC UA, those are kind of becoming the de facto standards for the industrial Internet of Things. And we have those built in already and ready to go. Investment protection. As we look across the HMI market space these days, many of our competitors have really taken their products and created everything over again and made them incompatible with previous versions and make you reinvent the wheel, so to speak, every time. And so we haven't done that. We're not planning to do that. We're evolving this product, protecting your investment, keeping everything compatible going forward. Since we released this product in 2013, keeping things again compatible as we go forward. So a little bit more details. The product, the what we have to offer. So really, what you can think of is this product is already got everything that you need to create a successful HMI project, deploy it, and troubleshoot it. It has over 250 drivers built in. And if we don't have a driver that you need, well, then you can also include an OPC client to communicate to anybody else's third-party OPC server. Built into the product is also alarming and trending, database connectivity. We have a patent on our database connectivity to allow you to connect to remote devices from embedded technologies. Web publishing, as I mentioned, to get to tablets and smartphones. Recipes, reports. Now the reports can be output in many different formats, including HTML formats and even written to as PDFs. And if we don't have a report technology or feature that you're looking for, you can also interact with third-party reporting tools. And for example, take those reports, output those, and then attach those to emails. So emails can be sent from alarms, they can be sent from scripting, they can have attachments included, and you can even send SMS text messages as well. Included in the product is many different types of graphics, shapes that you can create your objects on the screen, and even a symbol library that's composed of over 1,000 different symbols. Now, the way that I look at the symbols is they're not purely graphical in nature. They're interactive, and I look at them more as you can create your own custom objects. So you can use the symbols that we have built into the library, you can modify any of those, or you can create your own symbols from scratch as necessary. So this product is very, very flexible in that regard. Animations are built in, so many different animations, including rotation, position, resize, and many of those can be activated with multi-touch with just a simple check of a checkbox. Security is included. In addition to the built-in security system that we have, we can interact with and authenticate against Microsoft Active Directory. So if you or your customer are already logging in to your Windows-based computer with a username and password, well, you're probably authenticating against a domain-based Microsoft Active Directory. And why recreate all the usernames and passwords if we can just interact with that as well. The system can be built multi-language. There are, I think, 7 or 8 different languages that all the menus in the development environment can be put in, as well as the runtime. Your runtime project could be translated and put into any language because the system is built on Unicode fonts. Really, you can support any language anywhere that Microsoft has a language for it with different fonts. Could be Japanese, kanji, katakana, hiragana, Thai, Cyrillic for Russian, you name it, and so much more. This slide is just scratching the surface of what's available. But it's not only the traditional HMI features of alarms and recipes and reports, but the little things that count, things that other systems might not have, probably don't have. For example, a built-in PDF writer so that you can create reports in PDF format. Some reporting standards will need PDFs created. So rather than creating them outside of this system, use the built-in PDF writer. FTP client is included so that you could send and receive files to an FTP server somewhere. Redundancy, several different layers of redundancy. For example, database redundancy. So if you lose connection with a remote database, you can fail over to a local database and save the data. And then when the primary comes back online, you can send that up either in a redundant system or a store and forward mechanism as well. And recognizing that we can't have all the objects that everybody needs installed all of the time, then we can support things like ActiveX and .NET, where you can drop those on the screen. We can be an ActiveX.NET container and view and interact with those what's typically called properties, methods, and events. And something relatively new in the product is something that we call custom widgets. Now, custom widgets are a way to grab what is often called web widgets from the internet. People have developed either JavaScript, HTML code, CSS, and be able to drop that into your project folder and create an API that will allow you to interact with those widgets. And again, we call these custom widgets. Unlike ActiveX and .NET, which are standards, these different widgets that people are finding online don't necessarily have a standard associated with them. So we've created a method that you can create your own connection to these and add those in your projects. The ability to keep different versions concurrently installed on your computer, so that as customers need different versions and you have different customers with different versions, different machines, different projects, again, you can keep different versions concurrently installed. Online configuration with automatic runtime update, avoiding time-consuming runtime shutdowns. Give you an example. You could have your development environment connected to your runtime environment, and if you made a change to a screen, let's say you added a circle on the screen, while you're connected, that's all you'd have to do is hit save, and it can automatically go to that runtime computer without having to be shut down, and the changes will take place close to immediately, and again, saving time-consuming runtime shutdowns. There's built-in troubleshooting tools such as a built-in protocol analyzer. You can view and see your the actual bits and bytes that are going across protocol-wise, very similar to what you might see in like a Wireshark type product, right into the product, so you can analyze your communications and see what's going on. Multi-touch gestures are supported. This can interact with any hardware that's supporting multi-touch. Built into the Microsoft operating system, and often enabled with just a checkbox. But if you want to get more fancy, well, you can program and script around the multi-touch gestures as well. There are import wizards. Now, these are add-ons for third-party products, such as Panel Builder 32, Panel Mate type applications, as well as FactoryTalk ME and SE applications. We have import wizards available for those as well. So that can make it very, very convenient as well. Now, the product as a whole is a very scalable product. Now, I'm not talking just about resolution being scalable, but also operating system scalable. I mentioned several times that you can run on very low end to very high end hardware. And operating system, I mentioned that, and different hardware platforms, as well as different hardware. So talking about the hardware here for a second, let's say that you have let's say you're a machine builder and you have a standard machine, maybe it runs a 12-inch touchscreen, for example, and then you also can offer a high-end system with maybe a higher resolution, maybe a 15-inch or a 19-inch touchscreen, as well as maybe an 8-inch or a 6-inch touchscreen as well with different operating systems. So you can deploy this not only on different hardware but different operating systems, and especially if it has the same aspect ratio, the auto scale is just a checkbox that you can check and run on different resolutions. That makes it very handy. But this is so much more than just your average HMI. It's very flexible for creating different architectures, different types of applications. Could be and-on, or what's commonly production monitoring type systems to deploy OEE or key performance indicators. So for example, here's maybe a screen that might be a 70 or an 80-inch screen. It could be a TV, could be mounted in an industrial enclosure hanging up in the rafters. And this running maybe as a secure viewer client, you can have many of these up and down the line showing different zones and how they're performing, and get that information remotely on phones, again on big screens. And the really neat thing is that this product supports resolutions down as low as 240 by 240 pixels, as large as 10,000 by 10,000 pixels. So you can actually create video walls out of this product. Think about, I'll give you an example here. One of the largest that I've ever worked on has been a 8 70-inch monitors tied together as a video wall. And now, so these can be used and deployed not only in production monitoring, but building automation. So here's a building automation application. Here's a energy management solution, as well as IoT or Industrial Internet of Things, and PackML. We've got a PackML template as well. So lots of different capabilities, more than just your standard machine HMI. Now we've created a product that you can typically create your solution in layers. You can generate and deploy a custom project, or you can generate templates, and which I'm going to show you here in a second, or you can generate customizable projects, so that when you deploy a project, maybe you're deploying the project so that the users or the setup team can then customize it on the application, and be able to deploy that same template for any different type of situation, and kind of configure it on the spot. So lots of different ways that can be done. And I've mentioned the PackML template. We have an OEE template that can be reused, as well an and-on type template, and there's a few different variations of that. So feel free to contact your Wonderware or Schneider representative for that. And take a look at the modular architecture here for a second. So we can run on any different hardware platform. We'd love for you to run on a Wonderware industrial computer or a Schneider Electric PC. But the truth is, you can run on a laptop, a commercial grade computer, a server. But if you're having troubles with your environment or quality, then feel free to contact us for your hardware needs there. Layer of abstraction for communication. This is really a neat concept. Many times when you're configuring communications, you're going to, and I'm going to oversimplify this, you're going to essentially create a 2-column spreadsheet. One with the InTouch Machine Edition tag names in, let's say, the left column, and the right-hand column will be your PLC I/O points. And that's kind of the glue that ties the InTouch Machine Edition tags to the real-world I/O points in the PLC. And if you need to change manufacturers of PLC, change drivers, it's often just as easy as installing that new driver and taking that left-hand column and copying and pasting that into the new driver, configuring your I/O, and at that point you're pretty much done. So that makes it kind of neat. Layer of abstraction with databases. We can communicate to really just about any SQL database, and if you need to change database technologies or upgrade or improve those, usually often there's no or very little configuration changes that have to happen. And if you need toolkits to communicate to our tags, or even write your own driver, those toolkits are available. Talk to your talk to your software representative for that as well. Now, a little bit more on the portability. Again, that the idea of developing once and deploying on any of these different platforms is really kind of neat. And the idea of the feature set, most of the feature set are capable across all of these different platforms. What's often not available is things that are not necessarily hardware supported. Give you an example. Maybe on the full runtime, you might have a polygon that you can fill with a gradient fill. Well, maybe that's not supported on Windows CE. So on Windows CE, that would show up as a solidly filled object. So some of those things again, but the major feature set being supported across all of these different platforms. I mentioned these thin clients. Web Thin Client is built on Internet Explorer. Secure Viewer is full screen edge to edge. You don't need a browser. And then the SMA client, really, again, you don't need to install an app. It's just running on a browser and be able to view and interact with those screens remotely. Now, this interoperability diagram here, if you think of InTouch Machine Edition tags as the core of this, and being able to communicate to not only Schneider PCs, but Omron, GE, Allen Bradley, you name it, and that's kind of the main idea, is to communicate to PLCs and these other devices. But if we don't have a driver, you can also communicate via OPC. We support the OPC Foundation's OPCDA, UA.NET, and XML as clients. And if you need third-party OPC clients to then come and get information from our tags, well, we can be an OPC DA server as well. And eventually we plan on supporting an OPC UA server as well, but that'll come in the future, as well as communicate again to any SQL database. Now, notice that these arrows are all bi-directional here, so you could get information from the internet and send it to a PLC, or from a PLC to a database. Now think of this, we have many serial drivers that could go to, for example, a legacy temperature controller that doesn't have Ethernet on it. So being able to interact with those legacy devices like a temperature controller and be able to get that information then into a database. Who would have thought that you'd ever be able to do that? Or you could be able to take information from one brand of PLC and send it to a different brand of PLC, interacting like a gateway. So the architecture here is just about unlimited in what you can do with it as well. So in addition to the over 250 drivers that are included and no additional charge, while OPC is not required, but the clients are included. So for OPC DA, UA, XML, and .NET, again, we can interact with third-party OPC servers as clients. And again, I mentioned that the OPC DA server is included as well. But it's so much more than just PLCs. It's barcode readers, RFID, temperature controllers, motion. We even have a driver called TXRX that in very simple fashion lets you communicate to very simple network devices, whether it's Ethernet or whether it's serial, and be able to kind of custom write your own protocol, especially if that's a simple and easy to use protocol. The interoperability and just new communications drivers coming all the time. We've got MQTT, which is a publish and subscribe model, really geared towards the Internet of Things or Industrial 4.0. We've got some new robot drivers, SNMP for configuring network devices, SI for Siemens TIA, being able to interact and pull in the tags directly. So there's a few different ways to do this. You can not only communicate with multiple devices simultaneously, but get that information up into an ERP system, an MES system, a cloud. And in addition to how I mentioned that you might have like a 2-column spreadsheet, well, some of the devices that we have, we use this thing called tag integration, where we can actually import the tags from the output of the control software and be able to use the tags or work with those tags, and not necessarily, for example, if you export 1,000 tags from the control software and you only use 5 of those, it only uses 5 of those in InTouch Machine Edition. So it's real handy, real easy. In addition to databases, we can also configure to go to Wonderware Historian, whether it's on premises or Wonderware Online, which is an extremely easy thing to set up and do. And this is again using standard technologies and objects like our alarm, our event history, our trend history, our grid object, and many, many more of these objects can be configured. Even if you don't know SQL, you can configure these to go to databases. So very easy, kind of checkboxes, fill in the blank, and it handles the SQL behind the scenes. If you know SQL, then you can get very creative and very powerful and do your own SQL commands as well. And I mentioned earlier that this can handle redundancy and store and forward setup as well. In addition to that, there is an ITME View App object for for Wonderware System Platform. So this can really support remote management and deployment of an ITME application right from Wonderware System Platform. Licensing, last but not least. So the feature set that we have for running InTouch Machine Edition on whether a desktop or server-based operating system, we have these different tag levels. So we have 500, 1,000, 3,000, and 60,000 tags. And what's really neat is the feature set across all of this is the same. So at the high level and the low level, the feature set is the same, and pretty much the same when you move over to the embedded licensing. It's usually just most of the features are included. Feel free to take a look at the included help to see what is and what isn't supported, but most of the features are. And again, those license levels go from 3,000 down to 2, down to 1, 500, and 100 tags. So very, very flexible system to really fit into any budget and meet your needs. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for attending and watching. And if you have any questions, talk to your Wonderware sales representative, and have a great day.